Welcome back to the show, Lapse of Time. I am your host, TL. And before we get into today's episode, I want to take the moment to thank our sponsors, Wild. Wild is a new product that I have been trying out. They are a non-toxic personal care company. They offer not only non-toxic deodorants, but they also offer shampoo bars, body washes, lip balms, and whatever you can name for personal care. They also offer travel sizes as well. And I do have an exclusive discount code for all of my listeners and supporters out there, 20% off your first order at checkout by using the code Lapse of Time. That's LAPSOFTIME at checkout. And thank you, Wild, for sponsoring today's video. Welcome back to Lapse of Time. I'm your host, TL. Today's episode is going to be very interesting. As you may know, if you're subscribed to the newsletter, this is part 1 of a 3-part series, possibly 4, on the institution of marriage. In this episode, we'll gain some insight into how important marriage is and explore why modern society deems it unnecessary. I'm honored to welcome back Tamara, who you might remember from our previous episode on balancing the gift of working from home. Joining her today is a special guest, her husband, CJ. The two have been married for 5 years, and CJ has worked at Amazon for about the same time. But before we jump into today's conversation, let's kick things off with a fun icebreaker. I always like to warm up our guests and listeners with something light. So CJ and Tamara, here's a question for both of you. What's one thing you've learned about each other since getting married that you didn't expect? Tamara, hi.
Hi, thank you for having me again.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here.
Most definitely. I think one thing that I've learned about my partner since being married and that I definitely didn't expect is just the amount of patience that CJ has with me. You know, as a woman, we go through a lot of mood swings and anything that you can name it. He probably gets it 5 times a day, different me's, but just still remaining solid and supporting me through those mood swings. It really helps.
Thank you so much for that, Tamara. I definitely appreciate your answer on that. That was definitely insightful because patience is great. And that's nice that your husband definitely exercises those things with you as far as patience, because patience is definitely key in marriage. So CJ, thank you so much for being on the show. I know you're new. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
What's one thing that you've learned about Tamara, CJ, that you didn't expect since getting married?
So one thing I've learned is her persistency. Like, like a person would have one, but hers really threw me for a loop. The way she goes about wanting things or something that she really wants so bad, like, it's nothing or no one that can stop her from getting that. It could be a good or bad thing, but it's more on the good part. Because if she wants a goal that she needs met, she's going to meet it because of her persistency and her drive to want to get that done. So that kind of threw me for a loop.
Aw, that was so sweet. Okay, so since we got past our little icebreaker, I like the fact that you said, CJ, that, it's her persistency. Because like you said, it can be a good or a bad thing, right? So that kind of leads me up to a question just from your male perspective in your marriage. How do you define a healthy relationship and what role does communication play in maintaining it?
It's a wonderful question. Well, from my point of view, I think a healthy relationship is when you both are in sync mentally and physically. Also, when you both are humble and courteous to each other, it opens up so much for you as a marriage, and it just brings you a different perspective. And then communication is also it's major because it helps you grow as one. It'll elevate your mental between each other, and it'll also keep your stress level down. And you can be more collective
That was a good answer. As far as it definitely can bring the stress level down if everybody knows how to communicate with each other. Everybody is on the same page and realizing that you both are in sync mentally, physically, humble, and very courteous. Don't nobody want nobody that's just all about them. It's never about us. It's just about me, myself, and I. And everybody know that's not what marriage is about. So, Tamara, with CJ just saying what he said and how modern day society has deemed marriage pretty much like unnecessary to a point, and that it's just a formal contract. Do you believe that marriage is still relevant today, or has its significance changed?
Yeah, I do feel as if marriage still has a significance. However, I don't think it is enforced in my generation nowadays. I do see that people are becoming more acceptive and becoming like boyfriend and girlfriend and just accepting those roles. Then again, I understand. I know a lot of us deal with trauma and having failed marriages in our families or through friends or stories and things like that that you may have heard of that kind of gives us that trauma. Like, do I really want to get married? Do I really want to go through that? But it's just being able to overcome and find what marriage really means. It's really a union, spending that, time with your partner, someone that you could trust. So I definitely do think it does have a significance, but it's lost its meaning over time.
For sure. I definitely agree with that. I think it has lost its meaning just because a lot of people don't agree that it's necessary, that, it's okay to just be in a non-committed relationship. And I feel like we as the younger generation is, just kind of being settled with just being okay with people just, I guess, leading us on. I definitely agree with Tamara. Trauma causing things. That might be the exact reason of why a lot of kids nowadays and younger adults now are just kind of avoiding marriage to a point and kind of just, they're not really here for it and they don't find it necessary. They probably just think it's just a contract between two people. But, I am definitely understanding as far as like, coming from a divorced household or seeing relationship not work out in your family. But I do believe it is a beautiful thing. I think it's just sad that
Yeah.
this is, just kind of like where we're going and where society is headed now, that it's okay to, be unwedded. So, CJ, how important is faith in maintaining a strong marriage?
Question is vital, very vital, because God is the center of everything, and it'll be absurd to subtract him from this equation as far as marriage goes. You got to be able to think spiritually and also to align your beliefs with each other, because the more you stand in agreement with things, it'll convict you to always do the right thing as far as marriage goes, and always gives you that humbleness in your spirit, and it'll also help you put a priority to your marriage and how you want to go about things and how you want to communicate things, and just make better decisions, because then you'll be led by your spirit and how your faith is proceeded, besides how you want to see things.
What you just said, as far as, the spirit will guide you, because we know the Bible says, if you walk in the spirit, you won't fulfill the lust of your flesh. So you could be sitting up there in an argument or y'all in a disagreement and you're convicted about, okay, I'm not going to say another word. Let me just take a moment. Let me just walk off. Let me just clear my head. Let me walk away. So, Tamara, like, how do you feel about what CJ just said? As far as like the faith being like the center and God being like the center of everything, because I think that's very important, that we keep God in the center of our marriage. And I feel like that possibly is the reason why a lot of marriages fail. And that's not to say that people have not put in the work, but when you allow the Lord to lead your marriage, it helps a lot. It helps with the convictions, like CJ was saying. It helps with like taking a moment, praying about something, and then coming back to the situation. So, do you feel like that's something that definitely plays like a significant role in you guys' marriage, Tamara, as far as just praying about something and walking off and being like, okay, let's revisit this another time because this is not a fruitful conversation we're having right now. Whether it's a disagreement because something is not communicated effectively, or whether it's just, somebody didn't pick up their clothes,
No, I think you listed a great example because me, I'm definitely the runaway, like not in a bad way, just more so like, you know what, I'm gonna leave this argument. I'm gonna just walk away for a second, gather my thoughts. I'm not saying anything I don't mean, but that's when I just take that moment. We go our separate ways, and I know that he's for sure praying because I'm definitely praying. There just be some peace so that when we do come together later that night or before that night ends, we'll make sure that we try to address those issues so that it doesn't, lead to bigger arguments. So yeah, definitely praying. And I know that's one thing when I did meet CJ is I was definitely at a low place and he just always made sure he prayed for me no matter what, where I was at. He'll make sure he calls me, make sure we have that night prayer. And I feel like that's what started our relationship. It was just different from my previous relationships, just having that one thing that we can have together in common on and grow together in no matter what. So I agree with what my husband said.
Absolutely. So I guess what lessons have you learned then from like past relationships that have shaped your current perspective on like marriage and everything else and how you see marriage now and the difference between marriage relationship and just a boyfriend girlfriend relationship? Because everybody wants to play husband and wife, but they don't want to take that next step to let's sign this paper. Everybody wants to move in though, but nobody wants to take that next step of making that commitment in front of God, in front of people's families. Nope, they don't want to make that commitment. That's just too much. So what lessons have you learned?
I definitely have learned a lot. I think this is a great question because, they say that your past experiences kind of bring you to where you are today. And I feel like that is true. And I think that one thing that my previous relationships have taught me is just I didn't have that common ground. We didn't have anything in common. This person wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. They wanted to do this, and I wanted to do that. So it was just more so of when I didn't have anything in common to grow in. So it's just like we're going to go our separate ways. The Bible teaches us how can two walk together except they be agreed. So I have to have something in common to be able to grow. And I feel like that was
Right.
God. It came off the roots saying, but, hi, I want to pray for you. You're going to get through the situation, being so encouraging. So I think that is just what helps. Like, especially in this generation and this season right now, you need God. You need something to keep you sane, keep your mind, keep your peace. It's a lot going on in this world. And it's just like, if you don't have anything to, okay, let's do this together, then, two that walk together can move a mountain. So, yeah.
I like how you say two walk together, they can move mountains, because I definitely believe that, because the Bible definitely declares that two is better than one. So, CJ, like just hearing your wife say that, like how, her perspective has changed, like as far as like a relationship, that's not in God versus like a marriage relationship that is in God, and what changes do you think need to happen for men and women to feel more balanced in relationships than if they are questioning their marriage in this very moment? Like, okay, do we stay or do we go, kind of thing?
That's a great question. You got to be able to compromise with it. You got to be able to compromise with one another. You got to, one has to humble, You can't just have two heads. You have to have one head, and then you have to have the neck. Yeah. And then you got to be able to be more open because things bring more understanding and that brings more intimacy with each other. When you understanding, and you guys on one accord with each other, be able to understand things. And like I said before, to prioritize your relationship with each other because that's going to show you that real love and respect that you have for each other. That you don't want to overstep or you don't want to do things that's going to be contrary to what y'all believe in, what y'all stand for. So, like I said, one has to humble and the other one just has to yield to it. You got to be more open and more on one accord. Easier said than done, but you got to put just one foot in front of the other and let things happen.
Absolutely. I like how you put all of that. One has to humble because we both, like you said, can't be two heads in the house. One of us got to submit, one of us got to take the lead. So, and, I believe that the husband does lead. And when he can lead well, going back to the scripture as far as, the husbands to love their wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. And I often say that I believe it's harder for a man to love his wife as Christ loved the church than it is for a woman to submit. Because a woman submitting should come naturally. When a husband loves and respects his wife, and especially in that high priority that the Lord has set. Like that's a high bar for a man to come and try to love his wife in such a standard to where he's not just submitting, he's humbling, he's guarding, he's praying over her. Like Tamara was saying, like how you came in and you showed her a difference than those other relationships showed her, that this man is praying for me. This man actually cares for me, kind of thing. But as far as, having that two-parent household, like that's something I've always wanted for my child, and knowing that there's certain convictions that is there, if I'm upset or if I'm like, oh, do I want to keep going through
Exactly.
this? Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Like it's like, this is too much, kind of thing. But I think like we younger people have gotten so lazy with just putting in the work.
To say
As
that again, literally.
Exactly. Like I feel like we've gotten kind of lazy, like as far as, working out things in a marriage, working out, our differences and not taking the time to get to know each other. Those boxes those people check off when you first meet them. And, if they act normal around your family, I think that's a very important thing. If they treat you well, if they respect you, you might not like the way they look, but they check off all the boxes.
I just want to add in there, like, because over time, marriages have been proceeded from way back then to now. I feel like people have lost the meaning of what it actually means to be married and be committed to one
Right.
another. Like people have lost their way to figure out, because this generation, they don't know what it takes to stay committed.
Exactly.
We have a lot of 1 month, 2 month relationships going in this world. So okay, they figure out what that person really is. Okay, never mind. Instead of actually trying to figure out why is that person like that.
Exactly.
Is there something I can do to fix that instead of always want to run from trying to grow with the person, or always trying to run from trying to elevate with each other, because
Right.
nobody, it seems like nobody in this world wants to do that. They just want to come into the perfect social media relationship besides actually trying to figure out what can we do to elevate things, because what social media says and what actually is preceded is two different perspectives. You can't just go into something that, we're already perfect. We know everything. We're going to do everything the right way. But no, because then you're going to continue to stumble because y'all going to bump heads, not knowing that they actually see it this way and they actually see it that way. So it just has
Exactly.
to be, I just wanted to throw that in there.
Absolutely. I like that because that just that just leads me to my next question, because as far as what you said, like nobody wants to stay committed no more. Everybody's online. They're looking at Instagram. They're looking at Snapchat. They're looking at TikTok, and just the stuff on TV and the so-called reality shows, and nothing is real anymore. And I read a story about Zelmira and her husband and Herbert Fisher. Their relationship, y'all, they was married for over 86 years. That is crazy.
That's a
And
blessing.
that
That
is a
is
blessing.
crazy.
Wow.
And one thing they both said was, you have to put in the work. And they credited their faith in God. And it's like, where is those marriages at? Where are those marriages that have lasted 80 some years, 60 some years, 50 some years, 20, 30 some years? And we see now like society is tearing up 10-year marriages. Like it's crazy to be married for 10 years. And I've heard my aunt once say that it's called like a 7-year itch or something like that, where it's just like this plateau the marriage will hit, and one of us is sick of being here. So it's like, let me find something outside of marriage because this is boring. And it's like, it shouldn't get boring because you should always be able to get to know your partner. You know, you should always be able to get to know your wife or your husband because we all change over time. We all grow and mature. I hope we all growing and maturing. So like,
Yeah, I feel like the moment you feel like something has been boring or dull, that's the moment that I feel like they're trying to find interest in something else. Because
exactly,
if they really wanted to get entwined with you, you'll see more of an effort. You know what I'm saying? And
exactly.
you'll see more of a, okay, like I said, the persistency. They'll try to stay consistent in these things. Once you see that inconsistency coming, then
Mm-hmm.
you better know that something else is going on in their mind and in their life, and they're keeping you out of it.
It's so, Tamara, because I know, you know, we talked about this a few times before. Like, how do you feel like societal norms influence your perspective on relationships and marriage?
Yeah, I mean, if you're anyone like me, I'm definitely keeping up with the new Love is Blind or Love Island. I really like reality TV. I don't know, maybe it's just a drama, but I do like to see like kind of what what it portrays. But one thing I understand as I'm watching each season is the media only portrays half of what is actually being displayed in between like the couples and things that they show. And one thing that needs to be portrayed more is how they're overcoming these situations and facing adversity and how these difficult conversations are coming about because then that will help us be able to know that even though I feel like that's why marriage has lost its significance in some ways, but also still has a significance because we don't know in this generation how to be able to face the adversity if something gets hard or our partner messes up or you know how to still keep that foundation. If you already building it 3 stories high, why knock it down, start all over when it's just something very minute? So I feel like social media does have a very strong impact, but as I'm growing older and more mature, I can see why the media portrays this, but never portrays, the bad sides. So it's just understanding
Exactly.
that the social media, it only portrays what they want to see to be able to, gain that follower, gain that viewer, but not really, being real about the whole situation. Yeah, I think it has a lot of significance nowadays. And that's probably why, people try to stray away from marriage because they don't never see those couples remain solid. 4 or 5 months later after the show airs, they found out the couple is no longer together. So it's just giving us false
Right.
hopes in the media.
Exactly.
Like, okay, well, they portrayed all this on the show and then even stay together. So like, if someone, as soon as that hard conversation comes, I can't stay, together. It's always hopping on to the next boat, but not building on the boat that you're already on. So yeah.
Girl, you better say that. Hopping on to the next boat. So, CJ, like, what do you think is the key to sustaining a long-term healthy relationship as far as like marriage and what needs to change in society to better support healthy relationships and marriages?
Well, for one, we'll say God, of course. You gotta have that loyalty and respect, and you have to have a lot of patience. And you're gonna need that patience, and that's gonna help you humble yourself. That's gonna help you compromise things, because then that patience gives you time to think it over, and gives a chance for God to come in and give you His perspective before you just lash out or say something you don't mean or don't know nothing about. That's why you have to be slow to speak, quick to hear. You know, and
And slow to
what needs
wrath.
to
You're right.
yeah, man. What needs to change? I would say you gotta prioritize our life. Just individually, not really as a marriage per se, but as an individual, because you have to have self love before you can love somebody else.
Say that.
And, you have to make better decisions. We have to make better decisions as a whole, as a world. We have to acknowledge God in all of our ways. That's where the world as a whole wants their way in acknowledging God. That's why the love for God is waxed cold, because we don't care what He thinks. We don't care about how He wants to do things, because of how we see things is totally different,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't care. We're gonna do what we want at the end of the day. Chill. And
Right.
I feel like in everything we do, we have to learn how to, bring peace to each other and into our marriage, and to
Amen.
always pray. We got to keep praying on our forefront. you know, because that's what
Amen.
helps you. And that's what changes things, because you can't expect change without giving that devotion time to God, you know, and to yourself, because you gotta be able to get over some things, you know, and you know, elevate your way of thinking, because you know we can't always stay in the same mind space and same boat. You know,
Right.
as the world go, we gotta go, but we also gotta
Right.
be contrary to what the world want us to be and what we need to be. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so you know, that'll be my way of thinking.
I like that. I like that. And so, Tamara, like, what advice would you give to someone who's hesitant about getting married and just trying to keep up with the society and the normal things that society is trying to offer them as far as, you know, committing to a relationship just for gratification?
Yeah, I do want to share because I remember when CJ proposed to me and I shared the news with my family. They're like, "What? You're about to get married?" You know, I shared it with my family and friends. Like, you're too young. You know, don't do it.
Mm.
you know, you don't know what you're going to get yourself into. But I feel like all those comments is kind of what helped me to say yes. Like, I'm going to still push forward because what you guys think and what you guys know about marriage is not going to be the outcome of mine. I'm going to, break
Amen.
generation curses. I'm going to show you guys how to stand strong when adversity hits. It, of course, like you did mention, we've been married for 5 years now, and it hasn't been all butterflies. It's definitely been ups and downs. So knowing that for anyone that's out there that is looking to get married or has that hesitancy on getting married, I say go for it because experience is the best teacher. But you're not going to just go
Exactly.
for it and expecting it to fail. You're going to go through it saying, help me, why help you? And we learn these bumps together. When those bumps in the road comes, 9 times out of 10, we don't know how to overcome them. We just go through the battle expecting to get out. So that's the same thing you have to do with your marriage. So I would just say keep God first, pray and acknowledge him and make sure that that is your partner. And as soon as you acknowledge him, then everything else will fall into place because union is better than being out there doing you.
Amen. I agree, because it often reminds me of the story of the woman at the well when Jesus was talking to her about the living water. And he told her, well, I'll finish telling you basically when you go get your husband. And she told him, Lord, I ain't got no husband. And he said, you've had 5 husbands, and the one you with now is not your husband.
Not your
So,
husband.
exactly. So that's my point as far as society just wants to please them. You know, let's just sleep around. Let's just do us. Let's continue to bring kids into the world. And if you've already done that and you're still seeking to be married, do that. Like, this is not to say that you have committed some big ultimate sin or something like that. It's just more so of how society is moving, how society is putting this pressure on people to just do you, enjoy your life. And nobody's going to get hurt from it, but somebody is going to get hurt from it. You're going to be the one hurt. You're going to be the one. If you're a woman, you might have some strings attached now, a kid coming, and if you're a man, your feelings might be hurt. You might start stalking the girl. So in order to just save everybody heartbreak and unnecessary arguments and just unnecessariness in a whole, like, think about it first. Think before you do. Acknowledge the Lord. If you don't believe in God, I strongly suggest you believe in him because he's real, and just try him at his word. He'll never leave you nor forsake you. But I thank both of you, Tamara, CJ, for coming on today's show.
It was a pleasure. And I think this really helped. Like, I never, expected some of the answers that CJ said, but just like reflecting back, it just reminds me of why I love CJ. So thank you for these questions because it really opened me up tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. See, that's the stuff I like to hear. Amen. But I really appreciate y'all for coming. I really appreciate you guys for just joining me on today, for sacrificing your time. I know y'all got the little one over there, and I appreciate you guys so much. Did you guys have any closings for the listeners on today before we in this episode?
I just wanted to say thank you for having me. It was an honor to be here. Thank you for giving enlightening my, giving me more, you know, enlightenment on things and more motivation to keep going. It's just been an honor. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I thank you guys because you guys have definitely given me some insight on a lot of things as well. So I think it's just a learning curve for all of us as young adults, as parents, as married couples, as single people, you know, just be encouraged, stay in the Lord, pray about it. And if you're with somebody right now and they're still leading you on in this 5, 6, 7 years later, it's time to move on. That's all I'm saying. It's time to move on. Y'all ain't married. they not ready and they're not mature enough. So it's just best to stop wasting each other's time now because that's something you cannot get back. It's time. So, and since this is about time for us to end this show, I just want to thank everybody, all the listeners. Thank you for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Lapse of Time and follow us on Instagram, follow us on X, which is formerly Twitter. Join us on Facebook. We are on Facebook as well as at Lapse of Time as well. And follow us on our newsletter so you can stay up to date on everything that we got going on and possibly join in on the conversation. So thank you guys again. This is the Lapse of Time show. And I, again, am your host, TL. Thank you and have a great day.